My name is William, and tonight I am taking you behind the lacquered doors of a royal palace, into a world where a single whisper could change a life. People imagine concubines as a simple symbol of luxury, but in the royal courts of ancient China, intimacy was never simple. It was ceremony, calculation, and sometimes quiet tragedy. It still echoes in silk, breath, and closed doors. Picture the palace after dusk. Lantern light pools on stone. Courtyards smell of incense and warm tea. Beyond carved screens, music fades, and the night watch changes. This is when the inner court truly awakens. The emperor did not simply choose a companion. His household was a living map of power. Empress, consorts, concubines, attendants, each rank marked by dress and rank. A hairpin could announce a rise or a fall. Even embroidery could signal where a woman stood on the invisible ladder of the court. Yet the truth is even more striking. The most private parts of imperial life were managed like state business. Historians describe offices responsible for the inner palace, and records that tracked access and timing. In some dynasties, senior women or officials oversaw procedures meant to protect lineage and reduce scandal. The goal was simple on paper: preserve the dynasty. The reality was far more human. At the center of tonight's story is a young woman I will call Lady Lan. Her name appears differently across accounts, and some sources are incomplete, but the pattern is clear. She entered the palace young, chosen for beauty and family ties, and trained quickly in the arts that mattered. She learned how to bow at the right angle, how to keep her eyes lowered while still reading the room. She learned poetry, music, and the language of restraint. Lady Lan's first months were not filled with romance. They were filled with waiting. A bell could summon. A corridor could close. A senior attendant could decide whether your name rose or disappeared. Then came the ritual that changed everything. On certain nights, selection was made. Accounts differ on the exact method, but the idea repeats. A controlled system that decided who might be invited into the emperor's presence. Sometimes it involved a roster, sometimes a token or tablet delivered with quiet calm. To the chosen woman, it was not merely an invitation. It was a test, and it could be the beginning of glory or the beginning of danger. The full story behind this might surprise you, because before any meeting, there were preparations that were practical and symbolic. A bath scented with herbs, a robe arranged to reflect rank, hair dressed for the hour, and then the detail recorded in multiple traditions, supervision nearby. Privacy existed, but it existed inside boundaries. The emperor, too, was trapped by ritual. His movements were observed, his airs were political truth. If he favored a woman too strongly, factions formed. Families outside the palace tried to attach themselves to her. Rivals inside the palace fought to protect their position. In such a climate, love was risky, even for the most powerful man in the realm. Lady Lan understood this, but she was still human. When she first saw the emperor, it was not the crown that struck her. It was the tiredness in his eyes. He spoke little, but he listened. He asked about a poem she had copied, and he corrected a line with a gentle smile. For a moment, she felt seen, not measured. That moment became her secret treasure, but it also became her trap. Soon, she was noticed. The empress's ladies began to watch her. A senior consort's servants stopped offering friendly advice. Compliments turned sharp. A door closed a heartbeat too soon. Small things, yet in the inner palace small things, were weapons. And here is the intriguing part most people miss. These rituals were not only about desire, they were about control of information. If you controlled access, you controlled influence. A woman who saw the emperor could soften a punishment or protect a brother. Even if she never spoke of politics, others would speak through her. Lady Lan's family began to circle closer with polite offerings and carefully worded messages. Nothing open. Yet the meaning was clear. We are near the throne. At the same time, the court demanded that Lady Lan follow an unwritten code. Be charming, but not bold. Be desirable, but not dangerous. Be grateful, but never ambitious. It is an impossible balance, and when someone fails, the fall can be swift. One night, another selection came, and Lady Lan was summoned again. This time, she sensed the eyes in the shadows. The corridor felt longer. The lanterns seemed colder. Afterward, she returned to her quarters and found a single object placed on her table, a plain white flower. In court language, it could mean innocence, warning, or farewell. No note, no signature. Only the message delivered through silence. Was it the Empress? Was it a rival? Accounts differ, but the threat was real. From that night, Lady Lan began to change. She smiled less in public. She spoke only when spoken to. She avoided the gardens where gossip traveled fastest. She learned to control her face, because the inner court feeds on expressions. She became more skilled, but she also became more alone. Then, unexpectedly, the Emperor sent for her, not at night, but earlier, when the palace still breathed with daylight. This was unusual. It suggested not only desire, but trust. He spoke to her about the pressure of officials, about how even kindness could be used against him. And then he said something that explains the entire system in one breath. In the palace, affection is never private. It is always public, because it reshapes everyone's survival. Lady Lan realized then that her fate was tied to the Emperor's moods and to the court's hunger. If he protected her, he risked angering the Empress and her allies. If he abandoned her, she could be crushed by rivals. If he kept seeing her quietly, rumors would still grow. There was no safe path, so what were the secret rituals, really? They were the palace's way of turning intimacy into something manageable. Schedules, ranks, etiquette, records, all designed to make desire predictable. But human beings do not stay predictable. That is why these systems always created the very tension they were meant to prevent. In Lady Lan's case, the tension reached a turning point during a seasonal ceremony when the inner court gathered in formal dress before ancestral tablets. Incense smoke curled upward, bells chimed softly. Women stood in perfect order, each watched. Lady Lan's robe was slightly upgraded, a subtle signal. A senior consort noticed. Her gaze did not move, but everyone felt the shift. Later that week, Lady Lan was told, politely, that she would be moved to a quieter residence. Officially, it was for her comfort. In reality, it was exile inside luxury. Her new rooms were beautiful, but far from the main courtyards. Fewer chances existed to be chosen. The message was clear: you have been seen enough. Yet the story does not end with cruelty alone. Some sources suggest the emperor continued to ask after her health. A doctor visited more often. These details matter because they show the complicated truth. Even in a system built for control, real attachment could still exist. It simply had to hide. And that is the haunting part. The inner palace was a place where bright silks could cover deep loneliness. Women learned to become perfect reflections of what others wanted. Men learned to treat affection like a risk to be managed. The rituals made it look orderly, but the emotions inside were wild. If you want the lesson history leaves us, it is this: desire becomes most dangerous when it is trapped inside hierarchy. When affection becomes currency, it invites betrayal. When intimacy is turned into policy, it stops being a refuge. Lady Lan's fate, like many in the records, fades into silence. She may have lived out her days in comfort, or been forgotten, or found small peace away from the center. Accounts differ, but the pattern is unmistakable. These secret concubine rituals were not simply sensual traditions. They were a machine built to protect power, and machines always grind someone down. If this story made you see the palace differently, give it a like. I would love to know your thoughts on whether Lady Lan ever had a real choice, so leave a comment. And if you want more hidden love stories where romance and power collide, subscribe, because the past still whispers its secrets to anyone willing to listen.